Welcome, everybody. This is Nick Federoff, and we have a very special in-studio guest with us, and she is cool. She is... That's because you're with the Cool Wave, aren't you?
That's right, I am.
Yeah, we've got Clair Watson with us, and if you could speak a little closer into that microphone, and so everybody could hear your accent, because I am just enamored with that. It is so cool. And as a Cool Wave gardening expert, one of the things that you know about is how to bring color during the cool seasons.
That's right. It's that time of year, Nick, and I'm really excited. I never thought I would feel so happy about having to put a sweater on or a pair of socks, but now it's fall, it's autumn,
Yes.
as we would say in England, and it's time to get outside in the garden.
Oh, I thght you were from the Bronx. I thought that, oh, sorry.
You got that completely wrong. It's Brooklyn.
Oh, I see. All right, fair enough. So with cool season gardening, I think the first thing that I would really want to find out is, let's just say I'm a beginning gardener, and as a beginning gardener, I know that I've heard of cool season gardening. I think, what is cool season gardening?
Well, that's a great question. And I can tell you, I used to be a beginning gardener too. And I think, there's an awful lot of us that have an awful lot of enthusiasm, but maybe not a lot of knowledge. And cool season gardening just means I enjoy getting outside in the garden in the spring and in the fall, in the cooler times of the year. And that means getting out there and either gardening or even just decorating, just playing around with plants.
And I guess one of the really neat things that we can not ask ourselves or bring to mind that when cool season gardening is about is that example that you just gave about, hey, I got to put my jacket on.
Yeah.
That lets me know that it's time to do something. Okay, so therefore, once we have the idea, we know that's a little chilly and we got to, stop wearing our sandals because it's so cold. Where do we start?
Okay, well, there's quite a few things that you can do. And, maybe your containers are looking a little tired on your deck, or maybe you like decorating at fall. I mean, I don't know if you know, I think the National Retail Federation has just told us that 170 million people are going to be decorating for Halloween.
Wow.
and celebrating Halloween. About half of those are going to be outside in their garden, decorating outside. So why not use some of those plants that you see in your local garden centre at this time of year to build in with your fall decorations? And we've got the sort of staples that we all know for this time of the year, the garden mums, or those lovely warm hues of reds and oranges and yellows. But there's a new trend coming too this fall with pansies. And there's a new type of pansy out. It spreads in its trails, and it introduces those cool tones that as we head towards winter, the purples and the blues and the violets and the whites.
And with that just really brightens things up. That's what I like about that. Now, when you were talking about when you just mentioned that the purples and the whites and all that, the first thing that came to mind, I don't know if you noticed or not, but here at the thingsgreen.com Botanical Gardens, when you just walked in, I had some pumpkins on the ground.
We saw those.
Did you saw those?
Yeah.
We are so going to slice those tops off, and we're going to make planters out of them. I could just see the cool wave pansies being in these.
And that's such a good idea. Everyone's out there now with their pumpkins. Your kids are carving, so do one for yourself as well.
Yeah, and you know what? You can also take these and they make great centerpieces for the holidays.
They do.
They also are good for giving as gifts. Because people are going to people's houses.
Yes,
yeah.
Great idea.
So you can just in fact, you could do just a little puny one. You don't have to do a gigantormous pumpkin that weighs, 3 million pounds. Get yourself something that's just small enough for you to handle, not too heavy. And you could just cut the top off and then take all the goodies out and inside, throw a little soil in there, put your cool wave pansies. Hey,
yep.
You're downtown. That's
right. Exactly. It's kind of cost effective, but it's homemade and everyone appreciates a homemade gift.
So when we begin this whole process, let's back up. I've got an entrance to my front yard. All right. Where should I put these cool wave pansies?
Well, with the cool wave pansies, you can put them in the garden beds. Maybe you have a small border alongside your grass. They're great in the landscape because, of course, they spread and trail. So you need about half the number of plants because they fill in so quickly. They're very vigorous. I don't know if you know, Nick, but they are part of the wave brand of products, the easy spreading colour that perhaps you enjoy with wave petunias. And these pansies work in exactly the same way. So they fill in really quickly. You get all this bright colour. You can put them in the landscape. You probably plant them on sort of 12-inch centres because they do fill in. But you can also use them in baskets and containers because they trail and spread really well. So maybe you've got a pair of containers either side of your front door, or you have some accents that you put on a front porch, or even just a pot on a stoop, and they look really attractive and will cover the container or the hanging basket that you're using.
You are from Brooklyn because you use the word stoop.
I know.
And that's quite all right. I have no problem with that whatsoever. Okay, so when we're talking about the pansies, I'm going to pick on my own house first, for instance. I kind of live like in a little valley, and with this valley, though I can go a half a mile away, they don't get any cold at all. I mean, it's pretty moderate temperatures. When we come to my house, not all the time, but occasionally it gets pretty cold. How are the plants going to fare in something like that?
Well, with cool wave pansies, they're actually one of the most hardy pansy on the market today. So they're going to deal with the cold a lot more and a lot better than some of the other pansies. So they are hardy to zone 5. So as far north as some cities such as Boston, Chicago, Seattle, you're going to be able to plant these in the fall. They're gonna go dormant over the winter, and then they're going to bloom again in the spring. And of course, these pansies are going to tolerate a light frost.
Okay, so when you mean they go dormant, I mean, are we going to lose these plants altogether, or just the flowers, or what do you mean by that?
So they just basically go to sleep over the winter. So they will stop blooming if it gets too cold,
Okay.
and if it gets really cold. But they will bloom again in the spring as soon as we start having some days that start creeping up in temperature and we get above freezing. Then you're going to enjoy them again next season.
Now, are the flowers edible?
They are.
I know.
Yes.
I set you up for that one. I love to make pansy dip.
Ooh.
I love it to no end, because if you look, you take the purple and you mix it in with some sour cream. You chop it up, mix it with some sour cream, let it sit for a day.
Violet color too.
Oh, yes. See, so that's another aspect of using the cool wave flowers, pansies for this.
That's right. You can use them. Yes, you can eat them, but you can also use them in maybe you want to make an edible container. I mean, if you enjoy vegetable gardening, maybe you're using some cool season veggies.
Well, I'm also thinking for Thanksgiving and for the holidays where you have a cornucopia that people like to put on their desk, put up on their tables, and then because everything in a cornucopia, as far as I'm concerned, it has to be edible. Has to be, because you're going to have little kids coming up there and they're going to be taking stuff out of the cornucopia or the dish or whatever it is, your table decorations. And you can actually eat those things. That's what's really cool about it. Just the flowers. That's all we're talking about here.
So you can make your cornucopia really pretty too.
Yeah. And I could just see the way that the colors would just come and just dance out of the bowl, because you have everything highlighted. Because what you're really doing at that particular point is that you are actually what do you call it? Indoor landscaping on a micro level.
Wow, yes. Yeah.
I really, really like that idea. We're over here talking with Clair Watson. She is a cool wave gardening expert, and there's a whole bunch more that I want to talk to you about. Can you stay over the break?
Sure.
We're going to go for a break, and we're going to find out more about this cool wave stuff. This is very exciting. This is very exciting stuff because this is something that we really need to incorporate within all of our landscapes to make them look the best that they possibly could for the holidays and for everything else. I really like that idea. And then I'm going to see if I can break you of your accent. That's the other thing. I figure if I keep on talking like this, you'll...
It's never going to happen.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. You've tried. Okay. The rain in Spain is mostly... I don't know what that on the world that... Oh, you've done this before. Very good. All right. This is Nick Federoff. Nick Federoff on Gardening with America's most listened to radio gardening show. I don't want you to go anywhere, because we're going to be back with more information and ideas with this lovely lady on all about cool season gardening. I understand there's actually more plants within the plant line too, isn't there? Yeah.
Could be.
Okay, very good. Well, hopefully we'll talk about that and a whole lot more. So we'll be back right after this. Welcome back, everybody. This is Nick Federoff. Nick Federoff on gardening, and we have a very special in-studio guest here. We've got Clair Watson, and she's a cool wave gardening expert. And thank you very much for coming out over here. I really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you very much for having me here.
Oh,
Nick.
well, indeed. You know, we're talking about cool season gardening, and we're being educated on the different ways that we can incorporate gardening during this time of the year. And one of them, of course, is using the cool wave pansies. And let's go over the different kind of colors that are available with the cool waves.
Well, cool wave pansies come in those really cool season colors. So as I mentioned before, if you were listening earlier, violets, purples, whites, and a yellow.
Oh, okay.
So a few colors there to mix it up for fall.
All right. Now, we talked about using them in an entryway around your landscape, around how it gets very highlighted with the borders and such like that. And of course, we touched upon putting them in pumpkins. So obviously, we can put things in planters. But one of the things that I really like to see, I love to see a very colorful powder puff hanging basket. Now, will these plants work in a situation like this?
Absolutely, they will. So if they're very, very vigorous growers. So if you plant, say, 3 plants in one 12-inch hanging basket, those plants are going to cover and trail and completely cover that basket eventually.
Okay. Now, what are we talking about as care for a basket like that?
You will still need to sort of water and feed them, particularly feed, because anything that grows really well, these are like the Olympic athletes of plants. So you got to feed them.
Okay.
So feed them once a week. Just with a general fertilizer will be just fine that you use on your other plants.
Okay. A liquid fertilizer,
that will
a
be fine.
hydrolyzed fish food or something like that.
Yep.
That's good. Now, what about pinching back? Do we have to do any pinching back?
No,
Or what about the flowers, the deadheading or anything like that?
These are easy. So you can pinch them. You can, if you really feel, if you want to deadhead, if you really don't like the look of the blooms, you don't need to deadhead, and you really don't need to pinch to keep them flowering. They're going to create plenty of flowers on their own. But if you're someone who likes really, really tidy plants, then go ahead and pull off the dead ones.
Okay. What about pitching back the overall growth to make the plant bushier? Is that going to be necessary?
No.
Apical pinching or anything like that?
No apical pinching.
You're taking all the gardening out of this for me.
I know, but we're making it easy for people. Yeah, these plants are specially bred to grow shoots sideways and not upwards, which is how you get the spread and trail.
Now, is there a time period when we should stop planting these things?
Well, no, not really. Depending on where you live. I mean, if you're planting them in the landscape, once the ground gets too hard to dig, then I guess you're out of luck and you've got to wait till spring. But I mean, you can keep planting.
But when spring does come out, because these are designed for cooler
cool
growing season like that. Because once this ends up stopping on you and it doesn't get warm, then we're going to have to replace with something.
Yeah, so if you've planted these now and they've overwintered and you've got them coming up again in the spring, eventually at the end of spring, when we're getting into those really hot summer days, you're going to be pulling those out and putting in your petunias or whatever else you enjoy in your warm season garden. So at that point in the summer, you could well be pulling them out then. But of course, it depends where you live. If you're lucky enough to live somewhere where it's pansy time 12 months of the year, like England, then you're not pulling them out.
England? Where did you come up with that? I actually had the opportunity to travel there one time, and it amazed me how many plants did you guys grow that we grow in the United States. It really is.
Yeah,
but
lots.
The plants that you guys grow or had over there, it seemed, because of the amount of water, of course, they just seemed bigger. They seemed greener. It's like, wow, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, we certainly love our gardening over there.
You do.
To say.
You guys are kind of fanatical about it.
Well, maybe, yeah.
Well, that's good, because what that does is that translates and for things that we need to do to look forward to, because we can actually have that ourselves. I actually see this type of planting with the cool waves a great project, especially for kids. You take these and you can plant them. They're a no-nonsense plant. They're in the ground. They're in a container, and it actually helps with what we call cabin fever. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before.
Oh yes.
Yeah, cabin fever with the kids, and you can get them involved in doing something like this.
Yeah, it's a great way to get the kids involved. And the nice thing is, of course, the plants aren't poisonous or anything like that. So, there's no danger there with either kids or pets.
Okay, so once we have the plants in, we're doing minimal amount of actual maintenance of pulling and this and that. How large? Because you said the plants are going to be trailing. How big are they going to be trailing? I mean, am I going to be sleeping in bed and all of a sudden you're going to, pulling me out? I mean, what are you talking about here?
Well, they are very vigorous growers, and one plant will grow up to 24 to 30 inches. That they'll spread that much, but that will be over the seasons and after overwintering. So it takes a while to get to that size, but they do fill in much faster than other pansies if you're used to pansies.
Now, I remember, I know that there's other cool wave plants within this whole family of cool wave. How did these pansies end up coming a part of this whole thing?
Well, that's really interesting because we have people who work with us who actually develop these plants, and they're called breeders. And one of our breeders was over in Europe, and I don't know if you've ever seen in Europe those really gorgeous window boxes full of geraniums.
Oh, yes.
The balcon geraniums that they have over in Europe, in Switzerland and Austria. And of course, it gets cold there in the winter, and then these window boxes would be empty. And his dream was to be able to fill these window boxes with something that will be there all through the other seasons, the cooler seasons. So he had this gem of an idea, and pansy was a particular plant that he was working on, and he's like, I'm going to make one of these.
So we actually have taken this to a scientific level to bring this to the marketplace. This just isn't something that someone got a couple of seeds, they threw them on the ground, the next thing you've got yourself plants growing.
No, it takes about 10 years to sort of naturally develop a new plant like this brand new type of pansy. And of course, these are not genetically modified. So you have to let nature take its course.
Well, let me tell you, this is really fascinating. I really appreciate you coming out over here and telling us and educating us on the cool wave family of plants. And I definitely going to get out there. We're going to do some planting. We're going to get those pumpkins done. And again, Claire, thank you very much for being with us today.
And thank you, Nick.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, for more information and ideas where to get these plants, ask your local retailer. You can go to your nursery or send me an email, and I'll make sure that I get you a list or a nursery in your area.